Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and have conversations with amazing humans. For this episode, I'm so happy to welcome Stu Skinner to the conversation. Welcome, Stu.
Hi there. Yeah, lovely to be here.
Hello, lovely to see you as well. Stu reminded me before we recorded this, we actually met back in 2019, and as my memory is so bad, I hadn't recalled. However, it's lovely to see somebody that I have met before, because normally on these podcasts and these recordings recently, it's been people from all over the world that I've never had the chance or the opportunity to see in person. But it is lovely to catch up. We spent a little bit of time just catching up and seeing how things have been. But Stu and I, we're both mental health first aid instructors. We both deliver training to clients and loads of amazing people out there who want to help raise the awareness and the conversation of mental health. When Stuart reached in to sort of see if there was some opportunities to talk and to record an episode together, of course, I'm never going to turn down anybody that wants to open up and discuss their journeys with mental health. So I'm not going to say any more. Stu, I'll let you do your introduction. So I'll throw that one over to you.
Hi again. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's really lovely to see you again. So yeah, my name's Stu. I guess I'd say I wear many hats. So I am a mental health first aid instructor. I also run my own charity, also freelance expedition leader, and I'd say adventurer as well.
Amazing. So many different things, so many different elements, and there's reasons why you do each of those, and that's hopefully the journey we're going to go on as we go into this story. As I always do, just want to throw that question to you, Stu. I'm going to let you run with it. You take the story wherever you want to go with it and whatever you want to share. But the journey of mental health is what we're talking about. So your journey, your experience. So I'll throw it over to you, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's quite often a question I ask myself. Where did this journey begin? Right. How far back? And I could probably go a way back, but for I guess where I start to share it really is, I went through something really quite traumatic, and throughout, I'd say my teenage years, I experienced what I now know to be depression. But 30 something years ago, that just wasn't possible. The thought that a young person, particularly someone in there like who was 10, 11, could experience depression, that was just not really a thing. And it was kind of always on the sidelines, so to say. I definitely struggled with stress, insomnia, and definitely had depressive, I guess, episodes. My parents called me the hibernator because I would just hibernate at times, not particularly kind or gentle, but okay. They've learned to be a bit more empathetic these days. But yeah. I guess that's the thing, wasn't it? People didn't understand things exactly as much as they do now. And then I went to university, and I think for me it was always like the foolish man who built a house upon the sands. That's how I kind of describe my life. But I'd build something back, and then mental illness would come in and it would knock everything down, and then I'd build things back up again. Mental illness would come down and it would knock it all apart. And I thought going to university, because I've watched lots of Hollywood films, I thought it was going to be this incredible experience, it's going to be the best years of my life, and I actually found it to be the complete opposite. And mental illness really set it in, and I was very fortunate. I got involved in a relationship, and she was incredible, and she was massively supportive, and in many ways I'd say she was my guardian angel. But it was just became a battle. Like my mental health, mental illness became a battle. I didn't really kind of get any support from the university. The GP didn't take it that seriously. They were just putting it down to kind of exam nerves, and just told me to kind of pull my socks up, so to say. But it was just a battle I was never going to win, because I didn't really know what I was going through. So therefore, like, if I don't know what I'm going through, if I don't know what it is, then I was never able to manage it. And, that's why self-harm arose. That's why substance misuse came out, because I was doing everything I could to kind of manage what were really distressing thoughts and feelings. And, I coped as well as I could, but unfortunately, mental illness won. And I left university, and I was very lucky to get a job, maybe very unlucky to get a job in the media industry. And again, that was suddenly like I could kind of distract myself. And during this point, I lost my best friend to suicide at a time. I was self-harming, struggling what I now know to be depression, and was also thinking about suicide. And it kind of, obviously, it just knocked me for six. And then I can remember coming across like a Samaritan's report, and it kind of highlighted that the suicide was the leading cause of death for men. And that just blew my mind. Like, And I would say, like, did you know that suicide is the leading cause of death for men? And people are like, no. And people didn't want to talk about that statistic either.
Course, yeah.
And this, you know, this was going, what, 2004, 5?
Right.
And I was like, this needs to change. Like, I need to let the whole world know about the statistic. I need to find out why suicide is, you know, why so many men are dying by suicide. And so I started to make a documentary on the crisis of masculinity whilst I was working at this TV production company. I didn't know it, but I was starting to become manic. I mean, I had no idea what mania was. You know, for me, mania was what was well, and anything else was illness. And I always want to be that manic self. So I was always trying to find that manic phase. And I started off well. It was a very well conceived documentary. I interviewed, you know, MPs, professional football players, you know, people from the Samaritans. But then as the mania kind of grew, it became, I guess I just lost touch with reality, which is what, you know, mania essentially is. It became overly grandiose. I was spending money I did not have. You know, I was actually, you know, trying to create a Hollywood budget documentary with, you know, several credit cards.
Wow.
And then I guess one day I just woke up and I realized I was in hundreds of thousands of pounds of debt, didn't have a university degree. I'd left my girlfriend. You know, the career I'd always wanted to work in the Foreign Office, that was gone. Like everything was gone. Everything that I wanted in life was gone as far as I was concerned. And I was like, that's my life over. Like there is no getting better. And yeah, I just sunk into deep, dark depression. I couldn't see a way out. There was just no way out. And it was just torment. It was torturous. Yeah, every day was torturous. And I did make an attempt on my life and I was very lucky to survive that. And I was kind of given some tough love. I was like, got two choices, Stu. Either you sort yourself out or you get sectioned. Which one do you want? Right. But the good thing, I mean, the worst silver linings with suicide attempts, it did mean I finally saw a psychiatrist. It did mean I get a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, which was like a double-edged sword. Because it's like, it was just, you know, the shame and stigma of having a mental illness. Yeah. Knowing that it's going to be something I was going to live with the rest of my life, just like my auntie, just like my cousin, because it runs in our family. And then just that like sinking feeling like, I don't know if I want this. Like, I don't know if I want to live with this. I don't know if I want to take medication. Like, I just want a simple life. And yeah, I became a shadow of my former self and just basically became a hermit for a period of 16 months and basically a vegetable. And I don't think, you know, people realize, you know, that's, you know, I mean, we all have mental health and some people have, you know, sometimes have good mental health, sometimes not so good, but, you know, there's mental illness, which I think is on, you know, on that other side of spectrum. And it's, you know, it's as debilitating as some serious physical conditions that, you know, put people in wheelchairs. And that's what it felt like bipolar disorder, like it incapacitated me. It stopped me from leaving the house. It was awful. It was horrendous. And I just had nothing to focus on. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. And then an American friend who I used to play American football with at university, he was volunteering in the Philippines. And he was just like, hey man, my service is coming up. I'm going to do this big bike trip through Southeast Asia. Like, why don't you come join me? And then finally there was like that light at the end of there was a light, like the first light I'd seen.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds amazing. And perhaps maybe I got like a little bit manic about the idea of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, certainly when I told my psychiatrist I was going to go do a 4,000-mile bike trip, he was a bit
Sounds
like
a bit extreme, yeah.
bit extreme. Like, are you taking your medication still?
Maybe just a bike to the park.
Oh, I didn't even own a bike.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Did you know how to ride a bike? You must have known that.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I think so. But
amazing.
Like I went and deliberately chose to. I had no money, so I had to get money for the trip. So I chose to work in a cafe just because that would force me to speak to human beings and interact with people once again, because I'd kind of forgotten how to do that. Yeah. 6 months later, I'd saved enough money, flew out to the Philippines, didn't even have a bike. So like, and the journey began, and wow, you know, like cycled over 4,000 miles across 11 countries. And not only did that, you know, change my life, it saved my life. You know, I found my passion, I found some purpose, and I had all these wonderful human interactions with people, you know, from all over the world, and people that I probably never engage with, because, you know, we'd be cycling through remote rural villages in Laos, and so it was just amazing, and it changed. Yeah, it changed my life for the good in many ways.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah. And so in that journey then, so eventually you came back, right? You came back to the UK.
Yeah.
And what you're doing now. So how was that born? What were you thinking then because obviously, well, I'm hoping that you had points of clarity when you were doing that journey, which helped you to think about the future, and how did you sort of translate that into where you are now? Is there a story to all that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think because it was so transformative and life-saving, I was like, I want to do this. I want to
Yeah.
facilitate this for people who've
Yeah.
gone through something similar.
Uh-huh.
And then I found out there was a career, you could be an expedition leader. So you could take people on adventurous, challenging
Yep.
journeys. So I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to take people who, well, just anyone really, because I think any kind of adventure or challenges, it's good for anyone's mental health, but particularly through people being through experiences like mine who struggled with their self-worth and self-esteem and self-confidence. So I went to Belize, trained to become an expedition leader. So did some survival skills with the jungle warfare instructors out in Belize.
Wow.
Spent some time with a gap year group. Obviously did loads of first aid training, and we had scorpion stings, we had a snake bite, all sorts. But like the thing that came up most, because it was a remote expedition, like no electricity, no nothing. We were properly in the jungle, away from society for 6 months, and people struggle with anxiety and depression and self-harm. And I was like, there really needs to be mental health first aid. Like, I was just like, there needs to be mental health first aid. And it kind of fell on me to do mental health first aid because I had experience of mental illness. And then I came back to England. I was like, I'm gonna do something about this. And then I Googled it, and then I found out that, I mean, this is 2010, that the Department of Health had just introduced mental health first aid, and there was a thing called mental health first aid. So I did the course, and became a mental health first aid instructor.
Wow.
Because I thought there was a need for it, and it kind of tied in quite nicely with my journey, because although I didn't make that documentary, I did come across a speakers bureau called Shift, and they asked me to become a speaker, and featured in 2 BBC documentaries, one called Surviving Suicide, another one called How Mad Are You? And Shift actually produced, I guess, a resource that Mental Health First Aid England now use, the line managers resource. So yeah, I don't think all these things happen for a reason, but like everything kind of fell into place, so to say. Like, and it kind of restored my faith in the world and humanity when I'd lost it. So I guess I chose to pursue this career in not only normalizing conversations about mental health, but I guess creating and hopefully inspiring people to go on life-changing adventures themselves, and journeys, go through their own journey, so to say.
Wow, I find it fascinating. I just find it absolutely incredible when you think back to those days when things were really hard, those 16 months where you disappeared and sort of took yourself off the radar, but inside rather than outside. And then all of a sudden this transitional change towards, now I love the outdoors. And I know you've got some stuff going on with that as well, right? Still, and I know, well, the last year, of course, has been very, very challenging. I know for everybody, and I'm sure for yourself as well. How have you found that? And let's just be honest about this conversation if we can. How have you found that last year, especially with being an outdoorsy person who, and then we've had so many bloody lockdowns, haven't we? So
I mean, I'm someone that, happiness doesn't come naturally to me. I wouldn't say I'm a happy person, but when I'm around, like, especially young people, so I love taking young people like to Borneo, to the jungle, up Mount Kilimanjaro, and I love being around young people because I love their energy and I love their enthusiasm, and I find joy in that. I find joy in other people's joy, so that's how I connect to joy. And to have that suddenly taken away from me, like the one thing that did bring me true joy was incredibly difficult. And like, I mean, I love delivering face-to-face mental health training. I love talking about mental health, and I met some, as you have, some incredible humans on these courses, and it's great to get like a text message or an email, like, a month or 2 later, saying, look, I've asked a question or I've had a conversation I might not normally have, and it's strengthened my relationship with my partner or my son or my daughter. And like, I missed all of that too. And I was living in a flat with my partner, and that was really difficult. So she moved to France. and I'd moved to High Wycombe to be with her because I'm from Weymouth and Dorset.
Right.
So I was alone in a city that I didn't know anyone, didn't have any family, friends, in a flat, no garden, no outdoor space. And again, that descent came, and it wasn't good.
No.
And then Boris announced that second lockdown, and it literally was just like, no. I was just like, there literally was two choices. There was suicide, or there was something else, and I needed something else.
Get out, yeah.
And I guess back in, I think it was 2017, I walked across Jordan, again for similar reasons, just because I think bipolar is an illness of extremes. So
right.
I go through extreme
fancy a walk, just fancy a walk.
Yeah.
Where should I walk to? Yeah. Wow.
Just across the country, not a walk in the park. And then I found out this new trail had just been created in Egypt called the Seven Summit Sinai Trail.
Okay.
And I happened to know the person who created this trail to kind of increase tourism in the local area and preserve Bedouin culture. And he said, why don't you come and become the first person in the world to do this trail? And I was like, that sounds amazing.
Okay.
Flew out, did the trail.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something, I mean, it was tough, but it was just being disconnected. I mean, we spoke about this, being disconnected from technology, not being connected, because we had Brexit going on, we had the US election, COVID going on, and it was just too much. It was just bombarded with bad news, and suddenly I was connected to Mother Nature. And for me, it's very healing. I've kind of started to realize the true, and that some people might say that's a bit wishy-washy, but it's true. It really did. I found a lot of healing in that place, and there was no noise. It was completely silent, except for maybe the whisper of wind. And I just felt free and liberated. And my Bedouin guide, didn't speak English very well, but I just loved being with a person by a fire. And the Bedouins so different. They're never in a rush. Even though we had 20K to walk, if we came across someone, we'd always sit, we'd stop, we'd make a fire, and we'd sit and have tea.
Right.
And they'd have a conversation, and I'd just get my book and I'd just read my book and just be. And it was amazing. And again, it's just it did what it did. It helped. I guess it helped. Yeah, it stopped me from that suicide route, which I didn't want to go down. And then I came back in a much better space. But to be honest, this descent has been happening the last few months, and that's been a struggle. But I guess I know there's the difference between now and back then is I now know that there's always something I can do, that ultimately my recovery, my mental health it's in my hands. Yep. Sometimes it might take me a while, and I might have to be a little bit resourceful and a bit pragmatic about how I can go back to being in a good place mentally. But at least I know it will happen. And sometimes it's just got to grim and bear it, and that's survive, because that's what it is sometimes. And I think having gone on survival, being a survival skills instructor and gone into environments where it has been survived, that's really given me the tools and the equipment to survive mental illness, I'd say. So the relationship between those two, it's been really quite profound.
I keep saying it's fascinating, because from your perspective, what you're saying, and one thing that I do want to just pick up on there is that thought that when you're feeling suicidal, I've not had that feeling personally, but when you're feeling suicidal, you often don't see alternatives. You only see the one option. This is it's all very simple linear thing, isn't it? But you've obviously found a way to look at alternatives to that. So how did that happen? Is there any sort of way that you created that, or was it just through experience, or how did you create that?
I guess it all goes back to that bike trip, really, because and just knowing there was I was alive, but I wasn't living, if that makes sense. And my flame went out, and I just know that bike trip taught me that no matter what, I could get that kindling going, I could get that spark going. And sometimes it might take me a few goes to get that spark going, but soon I would get it, and that flame would come back. And that's what that bike trip taught me. And I say at the moment I'm kind of trying to gather some kindling and trying to get that spark going. But persistence and patience in the outdoor world, that's two things you learn: patience, perseverance. And
Mm.
I just know it's there. I know I can't see it at the moment, but I've got to trust. And that's what it is as well. I don't have faith. I'm not a religious person, but I still have faith. Like I have
Yeah.
faith that there's going to be light around the corner very soon, and that I will find my passion and my joy again. Because like experience has taught me that's that's true as well.
Yeah.
And not just of me, of a lot of the people. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's also really important for me, and it's great for me to hear other people's stories of survival. And
Yeah.
I think it's great while you're sharing other human beings' journeys, because it helps, people who
Absolutely.
perhaps haven't been through that, to when they are going through something difficult or dark, to know that you can get through it, like no matter what's going on in the world.
And there you go, living proof right in front of us that you can get through it no matter what is going on, and you can find a way out of those darker spaces. And it's that thing of connecting to each other, isn't it? And I'm very similar to you with, I need human interaction. I need to be with people. I find it really struggle if I'm isolated and away from people. And like many throughout this pandemic have experienced, of course, that disconnection, disengagement in many ways, isn't it? And as we go back out, how confident do you feel now about stepping back out to go back into those environments? Any thoughts around those feelings at the moment?
I mean, I've delivered some face-to-face training.
Have you?
Quite
I haven't
recently.
done that yet. Oh, okay.
So, and like getting on a train again was quite stressful.
Okay.
It is for me anyway. I find like, public transport quite stressful, but it was just again, like actually to talk about mental health in a room full of people, especially now, because I think we've got more permission to talk about it. Certainly people feel like they've got more permission, and it's more okay. I mean, that's for me one silver lining of the pandemic, and just to get in a room full of people, and sometimes just put the training to one side and just give people the space to talk openly and candidly about their own mental health and their own journeys, which they haven't necessarily had before. It's like they've been itching to share it. And I think many people are itching to kind of share their journeys, but sadly, because the shame and stigma is still there. A lot of people do suffer in silence as well. But it was nice. It's just nice to see a face like 3D and not through a screen, and not have to put earphones in and stuff like that.
I just my just constant thought when I'm doing virtual is I just don't know how tall people are, because we're all sat down, we're all showing this part of our body, and it doesn't matter how tall people are, of course, but you just don't know, do you? You can't get that depth and perception, perspective of different elements of virtual. I've got my first trip out tomorrow where I'm going to see real people again, so I'm like,
awesome.
I don't feel too anxious. I feel quite good about it, but it's also that there is an apprehension there, of course, isn't there? And it's always that I haven't been on a train since 2019, so it's now going to be, oh my God, different change again, isn't it, to that dynamic? But so you run a charity, and there's an outdoors world and everything else that you do. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what you've structured or how you've built your sort of world around you?
I mean, I guess when I first started, delivering mental health first aid was 2010. I became an instructor. I've been delivering mental health training before that, but like there wasn't much appetite for it. No one really wanted to pay. Like, why should we invest in mental health? That was why should we?
What a pointless
futile exercise.
More marketing merchandise with our logos on.
Exactly. And I guess I wanted to focus more on the outdoor world. I wanted to, provide outdoor leaders, adventure leaders, expedition leaders, because you've got to be first aid trained. You have to be first aid trained to be an expedition leader. So for me, I was like, we should really be mental health first aid trained, because we come across trauma, and we're putting people into extreme environments away from their support structures. So I started delivering mental health first aid, and my charity came about to get funding so I could run subsidized courses for outdoor leaders and expedition leaders, for me to make the outdoors more inclusive, so that young people in particular could be fully supported when they go on expedition. Because I think everyone has a right, everyone should have equal opportunities to access the outdoors, to fulfill a dream of climbing a mountain, and that mental illness or a mental health diagnosis or social anxiety or all these things, they shouldn't be a barrier for people to achieve their dreams, or take on a challenge that perhaps maybe people might say, well, you can't because you've got a mental health diagnosis, so you can't do the things that other people can, and which is just
Yeah.
It's nonsense. So
I agree. It's a nonsense. It is, isn't it? It's just rubbish. It's, yeah, you can't. And the only person that puts that is the very that they don't want to help you or they don't want to support you through that. So you can't do it. There's no point in even trying. And you don't set your own boundaries or barriers like that, do you? And you've got the Head Outside Awards as well. What was that all about? Or what's that all about?
I guess it's still like the outdoor industries, even though they like to promote how good the outdoors is good for well-being, there's still kind of, I guess a lot of instructors come from the army, the ex-army, so you know, very, you know, and conversations about mental health are starting to happen, but I really want to kind of drive change. I really want to kind of make it more inclusive and to kind of also champion all the incredible work that people do in the outdoors to mental health. And it's still, yeah, I just want to celebrate people's achievements, kind of drive best practice, and also push this kind of mental health training. Like, come on, like we should be mental health first aid trained. If we're going to be first aid trained, we should be supporting young people with mental health, and we should be allowing people with mental health diagnoses to, you know, enjoy the outdoors. So that's what it came about, really. Just another mad idea, basically, whilst I was on a walk, and you know, something to focus on, something to keep that fire burning as well.
And it's a great way to recognize those who are doing really good things with it as well, isn't it? Because there is, and you're right. And I see that, you know, I think about the parallel world of travel that I work with, you know, business travel, and there's a lot of companies out there doing some really great things, yet we don't talk about it, and we don't celebrate it, we don't recognize it, and then it doesn't really sort of come into the whole conversational piece. So we need to just be calling it out. And like these conversations with amazing people like yourself, you know, it's calling out all of us as we're all here to talk about these same subjects, and we're really open to talk about it. And let's get society's view on it changing by saying, look, there's loads of us, by the way. It's almost like an army of us, isn't it, who we all want to improve this conversation. It's just so many things we can do. There's a question I have to ask you this year, and you don't even know what this question is, so I can see your face is already like, what's he going to ask me? This year the theme for Mental Health Awareness Week was connecting with nature, and as you're talking about being outside all the time, what did you do during that week? Did you just stay outside for the whole week, or was it an expedition? What did you
I did do a talk. I did a talk on connecting to nature, obviously. But no, I live in Weymouth, so like I spend a lot of time paddleboarding.
Okay, brilliant.
Just being on the water. I just love the water. I love being by the sea.
Yeah.
I love just sitting on my board, having a nice cold beer, watching the sun go down. It's okay. I do have mental bipolar disorder. I drink responsibly most of the time. I know when not to drink as well, but I mean, that's for me, it's connected to nature, just getting out on the sea, and just I love the stillness and the serenity of it all. So that's how I connected to nature that week.
Wow, incredible. Well, what a great place as well. I love Weymouth. I could talk to you about it for hours, and I would spend many of my youth down in Weymouth when I was young with my parents. So it's a beautiful place, and I can just picture you on the paddleboard with a cool box full of beer. No, I know it's not the case. The odd beer is okay, in moderation, as we always say in our training, right? Everything in moderation.
Exactly.
Stu, we're coming to the end of this session, and it is just I've loved chatting to you and hearing your stories and hearing the way that obviously things in your life haven't been easy, and they don't, you know, they're not always easy, and you still continue to have some of those struggles as well, of course. But I just love hearing the sort of the upbeat positiveness around the things you can do to help improve when you are feeling those worries, those woes. So thank you from me, but I'm going to throw it over to you and say, look, is there anything you want to share with anybody or say, or any amazing magical quotes that you've picked up along the way that you want to impart in your wisdom? It's free for you just to say, no, I'm okay, we're all good, or you can just share whatever you like. So throw it back to you, buddy.
I know you said no politics. I studied politics at university, and I guess Martin Luther King was my hero. And I guess I still see, you know, the mental health movement as a civil rights movement. And one thing he said in particular, like, really inspired me. Like, you know, as my sufferings mounted, I realized I had two choices. Either I could choose to react with bitterness, or I could choose to transform my suffering into a creative force. And like Martin Luther King, I think I've chosen the latter. And for me, it's like, bitterness isn't good for your mental health, but creativity and transformation is possible. And that had a profound effect on my life, and that's why I've got the quote on my wall, and it's a daily reminder to, no matter how bad days are, you can use that negativity and that suffering and that, you know, for positivity and for change, and hopefully bring joy to other people's lives.
Wow, that's and what a wonderful way to finish this conversation is, exactly that point of, please don't ever give up. For those people out there, please don't ever give up. Keep fighting, keep working hard. There's always people around that want to help and support you through these challenging times, right? We're always honest about this. It's not always easy for everybody. We get that. If you are listening, if you are struggling, it's okay to reach out to us, Stu. You'd be happy to receive any questions that anybody might have as well, right?
Most definitely.
He's nodding his head, and as I said,
sorry, yeah.
visual prompts for our podcast listeners. Stu was nodding his head at the time to say yes, positively.
Yes. Yeah, please do reach out.
Yeah, don't worry. And so brilliant stuff. Thank you so much. And if anybody's struggling, need extra help, reach out, talk to somebody. You're not on your own. You are not on your own. I hope you hear those words. Samaritans exist today to support conversations. If you need a safe space to talk, you can reach out, call for free on 116123. If you don't like calling, you prefer a bit of texting, you can text to shout 85258. There are also many other organizations out there doing great work around mental health. So please know there's always somebody to talk to. You're not on your own. Reach out, have a chat. Stu, it's been amazing. I knew it would be, as I always say. Of course, I only speak to amazing humans, which is pretty much anybody who wants to talk to me. So it's all good. Amazing stuff, Stu. I wish you all the very best of luck on your journey. Keep up the
Thank
great
you so
work.
much for having me. Yeah, lovely chatting to an amazing human too. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's all good. I'll see you soon. Cheers.